Welcome, Tara. It's great to talk to you. I wanted to discuss love's shadows and the beliefs and feelings that separate people from one another in love relationships. Let's start with the issue of attachment. Do you believe that it's possible to have human relationships without attachment?
I think that it's possible to have experiences of love without attachment, but I think in an ongoing way, it's part of our conditioning to grasp at certain times, and that especially when, there's unmet needs, it's just part of our nervous system to hold on to where we think they'll be met. So I would say yes for moments or seasons or whatever, but it's also quite natural that it gets marbled with attachment.
So when attachment comes up in love, how can we work with that without creating suffering for the other?
First, not to make it wrong. It's, again, there's a healthy kind of attachment, especially at certain phases of our life, like a mother and a child and so on. That attachment needs to be very close in, and so it's biologically part of our survival. So if attachment then carries forward in a way that's not as healthy, to first not to judge it, because that just deepens our identity as an attached, needy, not okay person. So the first step is to just let it be there without judgment and bring as compassionate and honest attention to it as possible. I find for myself at different times that I've watched my attachments with my son or my husband or my sister when she's been sick or whatever. The first step is just to honor that that's just part of being human, but also knowing that attachment can end up getting in the way. When I'm attached, for instance, I find that I don't see so clearly the other person. I'm more caught in what I'm wanting. Attachment kind of blinds us to what's going on for each other. So I have to be honest and just say, okay, holding on. And in the moments that I watch it, I see the beliefs I have around it, like if I don't try to control something or if somebody's not paying attention to me in a certain way, it means they don't love me, they don't respect me. If I start to bring my awareness to the beliefs that are underneath the attachment and bring my awareness to the way my body and heart is tightening, that very attention helps me to wake up out of the self that's holding tight and re-inhabit a larger space of being where, the holding and pushing away might be going on, but I'm not as involved with it. I'm more free to respond in a healthy way.
And that softens us rather than becoming aggressive, say, which happens a lot in love when we don't feel attended to or not being paid attention to. And that creates a tenderness instead of a separation.
That's exactly right. If I'm judging the attachment or myself, or if I'm judging another person for not responding in a certain way, then I create separation. But if I can just forgive the attachment in myself and open to the vulnerability that's underneath it, then rather than fixating on another person to satisfy my needs or as being the bad one for not satisfying my needs, I'm actually going right to the place of where the needs come up from and able to bring a real healing attention. I think the mistake we make is that when we have needs, when we're feeling unattended to, when we're feeling not seen, when we're feeling not understood, when we're feeling another person's not treating us in the way that makes us feel secure or loved, we fixate our attention on that person and what's wrong with them. We fixate our attention on ourselves and what's wrong with us. But if instead of that fixating and that blaming, we can simply bring what I call the two wings of awareness, which are really the wing of mindfulness, noticing what's going on inside us, and then the wing of kindness, of compassion to what's going on inside us, we actually begin to heal the place, the wounded place that really was the source of the attaching and the judging. So the trick is to stop fixating on the what's wrong with another person or ourselves and just bring a kind attention to where the vulnerability is.
I'd like to talk about healthy detachment rather than disassociation. There's a misunderstanding in spiritual circles that detachment of the disinterested kind, of the chilly kind, is actually our goal. What is the difference between healthy detachment and disassociation?
It's a really good question, Mark, and I'm glad you're bringing it up, because a lot of times in spiritual communities, detachment is considered to be, an expression of being, spiritually evolved, when often we have so much want and so much fear around being in relationship with each other. And the fear side can often have us pull away and create and protect ourselves from the distance, and it might be in service of spiritual detachment, but it's really a withdrawal or a disassociation, a cutting off. When and rather than the word detachment, I usually use the word non-attachment, and where that can be wholesome is when we care and we're completely engaged with each other, but there's not an attachment to things being a certain way. So we're not attached to, I'm not attached to you responding to me and affirming me, or I'm not attached to you paying attention to me in a certain way. And that non-attachment gives me the freedom to let you be just as you are and let me be just as I am. So that's what I would consider non-attachment, where my identity is not hitched to you acting a certain way or me acting a certain way.
To me, this is connected to the misunderstanding of desire in spiritual circles, where desire is often vilified, whereas it's actually clinging and craving that cause suffering. I don't actually know how you can have a love relationship without desire, not meaning sexual desire, but desire in the true meaning of eros. What do you think about that?
Well, I think of desire as the essence quality that brings forth the whole universe. So,
right.
If there weren't for desire, the formless would not have come into form and engage creatively. So desire, this longing to live and express and celebrate life is innate. Where desire ends up causing suffering is when it fixates, when my desire for a certain person to be attracted to me or want to spend time with me, when that becomes not just a desire, but I have to have a kind of grasping. And then there is, my identity gets organized around that I need that gets very solid and very sticky. And that causes suffering, because then we're not inhabiting really the fullness of who we are. Rather, we're fixated. We're kind of contracted and fixated on life being a certain way. But the energy of the desire itself is just life wanting to live itself fully, which is quite beautiful and something to celebrate.
As a teacher and therapist, you must hear a lot of stories about intimacy gone wrong. What are some of the misunderstandings about intimacy that cause suffering in your experience?
Well, it's our greatest longing is to be intimate. I mean, we want to be in open, loving communion with each other, and our greatest fear is intimacy, that won't work and that will be rejected. And I speak a lot about what I call the trance of unworthiness, which is really epidemic in our culture, the sense of I'm not enough, something's wrong with me, I'm falling short. And most of us have some level of it, because our culture has all these standards of what it means to be okay, and they're handed down through our families. So when most of us grow up with a sense of I'm not intelligent enough, which is, it's such a sad thing that in the West we worship a certain kind of intelligence, and our schools, and kids go to school and only a certain percentage of them have that kind of left brain intelligence, and they come out feeling not intelligent, not desirable or attractive or appealing to others. So they're afraid in an intimate relationship. That person's afraid they'll be found wanting, or we don't have the looks, the body shape that the dominant culture deems worthy. So many of us feel that we're falling short, and then that makes it so if we start getting close to another person, the fear is, well, they'll find out and I'll be rejected. So the main thing going on around intimacy is that we have a lot of strategies. Each of us has kind of developed strategies so that the package we call self will be a desirable package. And I sometimes call this our spacesuit self, because we come into an environment that's difficult, that's challenging, where we're told to be different, we're judged, we're, told to jump over hoops to be loved and appreciated. So we have to develop a spacesuit of kind of strategies to get through, ways to get approval and ways to avoid being judged and so on. And the sad thing about it, Mark, is that we get identified with our spacesuit, our egoic strategies, and we forget who's looking through. We lose sight of or touch with the authentic being that we are. And so when we get into intimate relationships, if we start trying to be more real, it's very, very scary, because we're so used to presenting ourselves and getting approval on according to our achievements or whatever it is, that it's very difficult to get authentic with other beings and trust that we'll be accepted just as we are.
What's the role of space in intimacy? The importance of maintaining space between lovers or anyone in relationship?
If by space you mean giving people space and not having so much time and close-up togetherness, every two people have to find their rhythm of, some people have needs to have more contact and more time together and be closer, and other people need more space. In a way, the gift of space is that there's a sense of allowing another to be as they are. So that's more what I think of as space, the space to express yourself and know that you're going to be accepted in who you are. So that's more, I guess that's more where I go with that question than the actual physical logistics of how much time together, how much time apart.
That's really more what I meant, because we have this romantic myth, this idea that to be in love is to be joined at the hip, but that doesn't actually create intimacy, does it?
Not at all. No. It really is more energetic. It's more that I think of that the more we can tell each other the truth and be who we are and have space for the other person's vulnerability and who they are, that space allows us to then move in a kind of dance together that's very fluid and graceful. And to the degree that instead of that, there's expectation and judgment, a demand of being together in a certain way, any of those expectations then takes away from that space and creates more of kind of edginess and a crampedness to the relationship.
Andrew Solomon has a wonderful line in The Noonday Demon. He writes, "Depression is the flaw in love. To be creatures who love, we must be creatures who can despair at what we lose, and depression is the mechanism of that despair." Do you think that that's true? Is depression the mechanism of despair in love relationships?
Okay. My understanding is that to love we need to be able to die, that we need to be able to totally surrender into the living, dying nature of this world, that everything we love goes. So to be able to grieve that loss, to let go, to have that grief be absolutely full, is the only way to have our heart be full and open. If we're not open to losing, we're not open to loving. The word depression, in a way, I think of depression as the mechanism that pushes down or pushes under the pain of that loss. It tries to distance us from it, but then it lowers our whole energy level. So I'm not sure the word depression goes with it, although I think that's a pervasive way that we end up responding to the loss or the anticipation of loss. So it's natural, but not necessary.
And what's the role of surrender in love?
Ongoing. Every moment, if this heart is to love, we are continually experiencing the conditioning to hold on or tighten or resist. It's just part of our nervous system. That when we experience stress, the nervous system tries to control things. So part of waking up is, and when I say waking up, discovering what we are beyond that controlling organism, discovering a more quality of beingness, is to keep surrendering or letting go of the resistance. So in this moment, as we're communicating, there is a tightening around, is this the best question to ask, or a tightening around, am I being understood? To open in a loving way is to let awareness notice that tightening. And I'm doing it as I'm speaking with you, Mark, just to kind of be in it, is to notice, am I saying this right, or getting myself across, to notice that self-consciousness as a kind of contraction, and then to surrender it. And surrendering happens in the moment of fully including it in awareness. And if it's fully included in awareness, then there's a relaxing to open to become that awareness and no longer be identified in the self that's trying to answer a question. And once reopened to awareness, love flows naturally.
And one last question, Tara. How do you work with someone who fears the risks of love to such an extent that they're afraid to put their toe in the water? What tools and practices can you recommend?
First of all, I think we all have a degree of that. And I think everyone, unless we're completely awake, we don't let love in. And there's a kind of a tensing against love, and we hold on in a way that doesn't let love flow. So for all of us, that's the case. But when it's really, really strong, and especially when it's strong, the key piece to freeing our hearts is self-compassion. And I mentioned earlier the two wings of presence or awareness, and one wing is to recognize what's going on in the moment. So for a person who's really afraid of love, is afraid to start exploring getting close to others, the first step is this recognizing where there's just this honest witnessing of, okay, fear, afraid, tight, feeling, maybe witnessing where it is in the body, witnessing the belief of if I try, I'm going to get rejected and hurt more. So that's one wing of awareness, is this honest recognition of, okay, this is how it is. And the other wing is the wing of compassion, where there's a quality of tenderness that regards what's seen with kindness. And I sometimes concretize that, Mark, by putting my hand on my heart. So this is for anybody that's listening or reading that wants to explore it, that just to recognize, okay, afraid of loving, and then to gently put your hand on your heart, to touch your heart, and in some way send a message of kindness, is the beginning of radically opening to love. To just send even if there's not a feeling of kindness towards oneself, to even have the intention to, I'll sometimes say, it's okay, sweetheart. Or I sometimes use the phrase, I'm sorry, and I love you. And to even go through the motions is the beginning of establishing a new relationship with our inner life, one that is caring and tender versus one that is judging or distancing or ignoring. And that is the beginning of being capable of intimacy with others. So the two wings, seeing what's going on inside us and offering kindness towards ourselves, begins to really open the field and open the heart to connection with our world.
Oh, how wonderful. Tara, thank you so much. It's always so great to talk to you.
It's the same here. Anytime you're up for exploring anything, Mark, I am too. So we'll keep us in on this. And I hope things are going well for you.
Things are great, Tara. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you again very soon, I hope.